Greetings and salutations, fellow primates. It's the 10th of June, 2026, and I am Thaddeus Satori. In Chapter 1, I gave a brief explanation about how I think we got here. In Chapter 2, I offered a few suggestions on how to prepare water and food for emergencies. Chapter 3 was about other items I thought worth keeping on hand. And Chapter 4, electrical independence. Today, in Chapter 5, I want to talk a bit about the need for humility, and so begin with my favorite quote. Bertrand Russell said, "I would never die for my beliefs because I might be wrong." He could have just as easily substituted the word die with kill, or started out with, "I would never impose my beliefs on others." You get the point. Before the written word, the knowledge and culture of the tribe were shared through stories told around the campfire. It didn't matter whether these tales were true, exaggerations, or completely made up. They united us. As our species developed, what we lacked in speed and strength, we made up for by working together. So we didn't starve to death or get eaten. We gradually gained some control over nature and slowly moved into cities. Unfortunately, while our need and capacity to cooperate continued, so too did our tendency to accept stories without question. Leaders took them over, and instead of promoting mutual support and tolerance, they used them to divide and conquer, to divide and rule, because no matter how much they already had, they needed more. Some things never change. They convinced peasants and forced slaves to spend time, effort, and resources on building monuments to ego, or even stealing from the neighbors. Who needs bridges and hospitals, am I right? I don't hold these puppet masters personally to blame. They are, after all, just broken humans, and we know that wealth and power corrupt, actually change the wiring of the brain. They're addicts, man. If I were to ask anyone, have you ever, in your life, been wrong? I can't imagine anybody saying no. There is not one among us who hasn't made mistakes, and yet millions around the world are so damn sure that this one person has all the answers, or that our way is the only way. We are social creatures, but our need to belong to a group often overrides all logical and rational scrutiny, even the morality we profess. We see the speck that is in our brother's eye, while never noticing the log that is in our own. We perform mental gymnastics to overlook contradictions, hypocrisy, and unfairness. Riddle me this. How is it possible that a person can be pro-life and pro-war? We had to destroy the village to save it. We scapegoat and persecute others, support or even commit atrocities, then tell ourselves that the end justifies the means. It's for the greater good, man. Christ, even death squads, suicide bombers, and drug dealers have convinced themselves that they are not the bad guys. The ruling class and their minions design media and algorithms to convince the peasants to support leaders they think will best profit them. The point isn't to educate, it's to promote fear and greed so they can sustain a system that appears to be leading us over the cliff. They divert our attention away from the real problems we face and keep us fighting over some minor shit that doesn't even affect most of us. You're upset about what percent of the population? But even if some huge corporation were to appoint a CEO with a conscience, that person would be out on his or her ass in a heartbeat. The system itself requires leaders who are willing to sacrifice their own children and grandchildren on the altar of short-term profits. What about the shareholders? We, the masses, have largely been programmed to idolize money and those with lots of it, regardless of how they got it or how little they actually contribute to society. Whose absence would you feel more? That of some rich, famous twat or your trash collectors? Peasants from this tribe are told to blame peasants from that tribe for job loss, while the Wall Street and AI psychopaths try to eliminate every job. But don't worry, they've got bunkers. Governments award contracts and use our pooled money, aka taxes, to subsidize mining and fossil fuel companies, which then go on to pollute our air, water, and food. You know, the basics for life. But hey, who needs a clean environment when there's money to be made? The time is now to acknowledge that we are all imperfect, that we can and do change over time, and that it's impossible for any one person or any one group to be right about everything. Wouldn't that make them gods? And maybe, just maybe, if our gods truly are all-knowing and perfect, how about we just step aside and trust that they've got it all under control? Do they really need your help? After all, you might be wrong. If your beliefs bring you comfort and hope, by all means, hold on to them, but not so tightly that you want to force them on others. Understand that there is no one-size-fits-all. Each of us is unique in our genes and upbringings, aptitudes and experiences, so of course we can't all be exactly the same. How boring would that be anyway? But we do know we can only succeed by putting aside our superficial differences and working together, so we don't starve to death or get eaten. Of course, this is just my take on things, and I'm sure I got some of it wrong. I am, after all, only human. I don't delude myself with visions of fame and fortune, but if you like my rants, please click like and subscribe. If you know someone who may benefit, please share. I just want to get my message out there, and I'm told it has something to do with those algorithms I was just criticizing. I guess that makes me a hypocrite. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Cheers.